Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes per detail.
Back with another episode of Keeping Current with Kansas City. This is Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, I have Daniel Sperry from a little farther away than normal, but he is actually from the KC Star. That didn't mean he was not from the... Anyway, it's late at night. We're recording a pod. I'm tired. He's wore out. He's in like halfway across the country. Well, okay, it's a couple states away, but whatever.
Couple. It's more like it's one state away. I'm down in Tulsa. Feels like
it's a whole nother state of mind. No, is that a different state? All right.
It's also like it's like oh gosh, I don't know how to explain it. It's like Wichita. That's how it feels here. I don't know. Like they roll up the sidewalk at 9 o'clock. Like it's an interesting place. But oh well.
I have stories about Tulsa. Not all of them good.
I remember you mentioned something about Tulsa not too long ago. So.
Yeah, terrible soccer tournament down there one time. Did not like it, but that's not what we're here for.
No.
Current won their last regular season game of the 2024 season when they beat the Red Stars. That's the emphasis on Red Stars.
We like Russian communist anthem over that or something like that.
Yeah. Did they have that license? Maybe I could steal it. I'm not sure if I can put that on a pod. Something like that. But they beat the Red Stars, and it was a good match. They did not have Temois, and they still easily won that.
Yeah.
What anything stand out for you from that game, man?
The offensive blitz was back again. I think 3 goals in 9 minutes was the thing that we saw from teams earlier. A lot from this team a lot earlier in the year. But at the same time, like they were really clinical in those chances. They built themselves a nice cushy lead very quickly, and then just basically had to manage the game and defend. And I think Chicago had a couple of really good chances there at the beginning of the first half, and then they scored eventually in like 8 minutes into the second. Or did I say first half? Sorry, the beginning of the second half, they scored right away. But then they really didn't threaten or danger much after that. And I thought that was kind of one of those moments where the Current kind of took their lumps for a second. They got momentarily disorganized, and then things evened out for them, and they ended up in a good spot. But ultimately, I think the biggest takeaway for me was to see consistent goal production from that front line, even without Temois, and good quality chance production too.
Yeah, it was good opportunities, good setup, good goals. Cooper in the 23rd, Dabini in 26th, and Nichelle Prince in the 33rd, according to the official stats. Like you said, they gave up a goal early in the second half to Schlegel. It was well played. You can see like why they're still a good team even when Temois is not out there. And I mean, we kind of, Vlaco talked about this a little bit today, but they can still do things without Temois.
They sure can. And I think it was, impressive. Again, like, I will say this, like, right, like we thought this team would be a playoff team regardless, right? Even if we didn't realize how good Temois and Bia were really going to be in this league. I know, well, we can talk about Bia a little bit later, but, Bia still ended the league in top 10 in goals per 90 minutes played great, despite playing 16 games and maybe 1,000 minutes, because a lot of those games came off the bench with injury or coming back from injury before she got re-injured. Um, her expected assisted goals number was the top in the league. Now, expected assists and expected assisted goals is a little different. It measures expected assisted goals measures how likely the assist was going to result in a goal, and she led the league in that stat category per 90 minutes, having played, like I said, barely 1,000 minutes in the league, right? So it's just one of those things with her that she's like that. We thought we didn't really know how good those players were going to be, and we still thought this probably should be a good team, right? A good playoff team. Last year, we thought the roster said they should have been a playoff team. They just did not do it very well coaching wise. There was a lot of other stuff going on. Um, and, for so long, for the last couple of months, this team has pretty much relied on Temma scoring all their goals. And I think people forget, the fact of how quick it took them to have like 15 different goal scorers, that this is a team that can score goals regardless of who's on the field. And a lot of that comes down to Vlatko's coaching too. Because remember, this was a group last year that had some trouble scoring at times outside of Dabinia. So, this is there's a lot here, right? This is a good roster. There's a good coach, and maybe people should not be so thinking of this team as a top heavy team because I mean, look at Washington, right? They lose Croy Bethune, and you're like, okay, the point drops are coming. There's no way that the Current aren't going to end up, maybe leapfrogging them. And the Current could never get out of fourth, and they hardly lost a game from the point Croy Bethune left. And same with Washington Spirit. Their one loss was to the Current. So it's one of those things with that, like, yes, good players are really integral to good teams, but these teams are stacked and they have good coaches. And that's what has set them apart from the rest of the league for so long. And I think that, the Current being like we were talking about the point disparity between 4 and 5 and 14 in the league last time we were on this podcast. And it just shows the levels to those top four teams compared to everybody else that they could be missing their starting number 9 and their best goal in the league's best goal scoring season ever out of a player, and they could still be a team that is going to win a game comfortably on the road 3-1.
Yeah, and just kind of like summarize real quick because they finished with Orlando with 60 points, Washington with 56, Gotham with 56, the Current with 55, 6-point drop to North Carolina, a 5-point drop to Portland, and then Bay, Chicago, and then everybody after that. So we've talked about this before. There's a pretty clear top 4 teams. The other team kind of close is North Carolina, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask Flacco, and I absolutely forgot today, just totally slipped my mind. Maybe I'll do it on the next availability, but just how he sees that stratification this year versus some previous years.
Yeah. You said 6. I'm just going to make sure that point disparity between 4 and 5 is 16, whereas the disparity from last place to 8th is 12 points.
Right. Yeah.
It's yeah. I apologize if you did say 16 on my lovely hotel Wi-Fi. It sounded like you said 6, so just making sure we had the right numbers here.
No, you're absolutely, actually, you're right. I did say 6. I knew it was 16, and just again, probably a little tired.
Bad math. It's okay. I forgive you.
Bad speaking. All right, with North Carolina being, in case we didn't already say this, they face North Carolina this weekend at CPKC Stadium at 11 in the morning, oddly.
Good old
Why?
CBS kickoff time.
Yeah, it's seems like the Current have had a lot of really early games this year. I don't mind it because of the lighting, but that's still seems weird.
Lighting
But
gets the game day over with early in the day, all good things.
yeah, and they get to have a Big 12 championship game that evening at the same place. Actually, I'm just not sure how that field's going to be holding up after this weekend. They've had a lot of Big 12 games there, and then they're going to play, and then just one more Big 12 game after that. All North Carolina, what do we see from them? Obviously, they're a decent team. They're a team that's
Mhm.
beaten the current.
Yeah, they're also a team that, I think has struggled with goal scoring this year. Um, they've got 34 goals, which is actually the lowest of any of the playoff. Sorry, not the lowest of any of the playoff teams, but um, they're well below the mark of the current of Gotham. They're 34 goals is not a lot in a season, and their defense um, has conceded 28. So we're talking a margin of 6 goals, and they've got 12 wins. So they're a team that wins in the fine margins when they do win, and loses, a lot of 1-2-0 games too. If you look at their last couple of games played, it's interesting. I don't want to say that they fizzled out because, um, I don't feel like that's always the most fair thing to say. But looking at this team right now, they lose to Spirit, they lose to Bay, they tie Angel City, lose or they do beat San Diego 2-1, and then they beat Chicago 3-1 in their last 5 games there. But they've got since September, they have beaten the teams that they have beaten have been the Wave and the Chicago Red Stars, and they've got losses and draws to Bay, Angel City, um, Racing Louisville is a loss. I mean, they lose to Seattle. Um, those are not good teams there, right? So it's an interesting team with North Carolina, and they play it like I said, they play a lot of fine margin games. They want to possess the ball, which I think their ability to create clear-cut chances. If you remember that game against the Current in the Summer Cup, they actually had most of the ball for that game, and they really didn't create much on the Current at all. Nothing that was really dangerous. They had moments where they were trying stuff, but it wasn't coming off. I think Victoria Pickett was playing at striker. Now they're a little bit different team. They get Caroline back, but this is a team that just they have their game model and they stick to it. And Sean Nahas is a good coach. He's got them stuck to that model. But I don't know that they just haven't been able to win often enough and effectively enough with that model. And it'll be and score goals at a consistent rate to put games to bed and do all that. So this is the Current don't give up a ton of goals at home. And I think it kind of plays into who the Current want to be as a team, especially in the playoffs, who they've been for the last 2 months. And it's interesting because you have two teams against each other, and the likely game state is the game state that both teams want. You know, and that's going to be interesting to see who executes better um, in those game states and who makes less mistakes. And welcome to the playoffs. Whoever makes less mistakes wins.
And Vlaco talked about that a little bit today too. Is it's those fine margins, it's the details that have to be taken care of. Uh, Vanessa and Michelle were asked about that today also, and it's just that they know that they've been working on the details basically since the midsummer. They were a good team before all the changes, but they've just been consistently working on being better and better. And we've talked about this almost every pod since the change with Schultz and Alana Cook and Kayla Sharples coming in, about how they've been defensively much better. They've only given up, I think it's now 3 goals with that group.
Mhm.
One of them being the own goal, one being when Cook was already off, and then this one goal in this last game, which was
And that other goal was an absolute stunner, world class goal too.
right.
Like I'm not faulting anybody for that one. That's just tip your cap. Cascarino's a baller, and you say, well done.
So as long as they're playing their game,
Mhm.
they're not going to give up many goals.
Yeah,
And
I genuinely think like that goal that they gave up to Chicago in that game was the first time where I felt like, oh, there was a couple of missed defensive assignments since they played that North Carolina game. Like that like if somebody was out of position, and that's how that gap in the middle for Schlegel opened wide up, opened up so wide through the middle. There was a giant gap between I think Ellie Wheeler and Sharples, that opened up. Somebody overcommitted somewhere or undercommitted, didn't get there in time, and the goal happened. So just one of those like that. That's the first time since September 1st, right? Or October 1st, September 1st, I think, which is when they played the Courage. It's the first time since September 1st that the Current have like actively been picked apart and disorganized for a goal against, which is just kind of insane considering the type of defense that we were seeing from them earlier in the year.
Yeah. Well, while you were talking, I was just out of curiosity counting how many North Carolina players it takes to equal one Temwa in goal production.
Ooh, that's a fun game.
Any guess?
I'm going to say with 34 goals this year, I'm going to say six, eight,
6 players.
six players.
Going off the NWSL stats here.
Hmm?
Sanchez with 5, Lucy with 4, St. George with 3, Pinto with 3, Hopkins with 3, and Wingate with 2. There's a couple other players with 2, but that was
Yeah.
just the first person
Yeah.
there. Not that it matters in the slightest for this game,
Hmm.
because Timwa is day to day. She was in practice this morning. Uh, didn't get to see, you know how those practices go. We don't get to see a whole lot of them.
Hmm.
But she was running. I didn't see her at top speed because they weren't like long distance drills, but they were move the ball, pass it into a small goal type of thing.
Yeah.
Nobia still,
Hmm.
she's out for this game. We know that they can score without Temwa, and I actually think that might be to their advantage if they don't have Temwa at the beginning of the game. Maybe she can be on the bench, come off the bench if they need her.
Yeah. For sure. I also think too, like, the Temwa thing is interesting to me just because we knew nothing was wrong with Temwa until Saturday, the day before the game.
Right.
She was never held out of any media or practice because I did interviews with her last week. Story coming soon. Plug that one. Sorry, shameless plug. Um,
Yeah, you're
but at the same
shameless.
time, the like that to me, like if we're now she's in practice again, we're saying day to day. It feels like the day to day thing is just, you know, how is this NHL day to day? We're just everybody's questionable, everybody's day to day. We're just gonna try and keep everybody guessing and see what happens. But she's gonna be out there because I will say this: Vlaco in an answer today did actually say the words, "We'll be happy to have her back for the next game." And then
Yeah.
afterwards said he's day to day, that she's day to day.
Right.
So I think that's just one of those things of like, how much of this are we playing the game? Um, and I'm not going like, let's also be realistic here. I think there's a lot of players on the current who are not on the injury report who are probably dealing with something. Like this is the way things go at the end of the season for every sport.
Yes.
Everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah. A lot
So
of players, a lot of potential for little things. So
So how you manage them, and a lot of players, grit it out at this part of the year. I mean, gosh, there's a clip I think from Lowe that she put out from the offseason today, where all these players that were in that offseason show are talking about how they try and play through injuries. Like it's just the player mindset. So, everybody's dealing with something. They're all playing through some kind of knock at this point. Very few players in this entire playoffs are like truly 100% top fitness healthy right now. And that's the reality of pro sports at this time of year. Um, so I'll be interested to see. I personally, I think I'd be shocked if she was out at all. If I wouldn't surprise me if she is on the roster and is brought off the bench. It also wouldn't surprise me if she started. But I think that though, if we're looking at her availability specifically for this game, if on Friday she's listed as out, I would be floored.
I would be very surprised as well. And again, we don't want to say that he's totally playing a game there, mind game, but I would not be surprised if that's the case. He's a wily, savvy veteran in coaching. Uh,
And coaches do this.
yeah,
Coaches do it.
yeah. It don't, and I don't blame him. It's just the way it is. The It's a nice problem to give North Carolina. Do you go into this thinking you're going to have to defend the Golden Boot winner who just set an amazing record and can blaze by every single player on your roster? Or are you going to have to go into it dealing with power forward Michelle Cooper, super skilled Dabinia, and Nichelle Prince? Not that not going to have to deal with them anyway. Oh,
Yeah.
and don't forget Vanessa DiBernardo and everybody else. Lola Bonta.
Mhm.
Haley May still needs to get one, I believe. So yeah,
Yeah.
all these players. If you focus on Timois, you have to deal with all of them. If you don't focus on Timois, you still have to deal with all of them. So
Yeah.
a good coaches, how many coaches do we always go into? Like they'll say, "Well, we're going to focus on playing our game. We're going to play our game." Of course, we're
Mhm.
aware of the other player, but we always have to do our game. Yeah, that's true, but you still got to be ready for a Timois.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would not be surprised if it's a little mind game going on there.
Hmm.
With it being at CPKC Stadium, first home playoff game for the current in WSL play. They did for Challenge Cup, if I remember correctly. Who was that against?
Yes.
North Carolina? Yeah, anyway.
This is the third straight year, actually, really, yeah, third straight year of a knockout game against North Carolina in
Yeah.
Kansas City. North Carolina won the first two. The current won the earlier one in the Summer Cup semifinal, and so now we get yet another North Carolina Kansas City current matchup in Kansas City. Fun.
Yeah, but it's definitely a different scenario. North
Hmm.
Carolina would have been the definite expected better team in the first two meetings.
Yeah,
The
Dabinia
third
was
one,
playing for them in the first one too.
yeah. And North Carolina did not have their full roster in the Summer Cup, so uh,
No.
but now everybody should be available, nobody out because of international duty. But where I was going is first home playoff game at CPKC Stadium, first one in Kansas City, first one for the current. It should be a pretty exciting crowd that day. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the atmosphere should rival that of the first ever game there. I mean, it's Kansas City. People know sports. People know how to get up for playoff games. I mean, Children's Mercy Park atmosphere at playoff games is always awesome and insane for sporting. This is an educated soccer city at this point. I think people are aware of what's at stake. There's a reason why these tickets are incredibly hot to get, and it's going to be a good time out there.
Yeah. Uh, People might need a little extra cup of coffee that morning because it's still morning, but
Mhm.
they should be pretty psyched for that to happen. Uh, it will be a pretty electric crowd, and everybody is going to be looking forward to it. What do you got predictions? I know we don't really do
Oh,
predictions.
you're putting me in a hard place, Thad. Um, my prediction is that it's going to be fun. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's going to be fun. It'll be a really good experience, I think. And I think they will know the result of who they play in the next round too going into that match. Like they'll watch Washington and Bay FC play and Chicago play Friday night, and then the current will play on Saturday morning. So that interests me. Yeah, especially like let's say in the off chance that the Chicago Red Stars go into Orlando and win, right? Like in the off chance there.
Right.
Um, like now all of a sudden the current go into that game knowing, oh, the next game's at home. Like there's that level of uh like push behind it. There's that level of intensity behind it. And I think it's really it's going to be a whole, and even if it is Orlando in the next one, like you're excited, right? Like, all right, bring us. Everybody thought this was going to be the final. Psych, it's going to be the semifinals. Let's do this. And I think it's one of those games that the Current are going to would take head on and embrace fully. So, um, I, I I expect the Current to come out supercharged like they did in that home opener. I'd be shocked if they lose just because um, I think we've talked about at this point. This is not the league that is as tight from top to bottom in the table as it was in past years, where Gotham coming in as the sixth seed might be 5 points off of the Shield. There's 12 points in the regular season between the Current and Courage, and I actually think both teams were very consistent to who they were throughout the regular season. And so at that point, like this is the disparity. And so you would expect the Current to win in this situation. And I do think too, like if the Current lose this game, fans should be a little bit disappointed because this is a team that clearly has the gas and the juice to do a whole lot more than just fourth seed and flame out in the playoffs. And you can excuse the fourth seed with the historic level of the teams in front of them, but in the standings. But I mean, you got to get to the semifinals at least, in my opinion. And so I think it's one of those of like I think the expectation will be there, but there's just going to be a level of confidence with them right now that I think they'll come out flying and take care of business on Saturday.
Do you feel like, because again, Vlaco talked a little bit about this morning at training, you know, the, how people saw him coming from, having been a club coach and international coach, and we know that there was a little bit of struggles there, but he needed to come out and kind of show that the team was going to be good, and he was back to coaching and doing well and all that stuff. Do you feel like it would be a little bit of a would people kind of jump on criticism like he couldn't close the deal if he didn't take them at least to the semifinal?
I wouldn't be surprised, but that would just be from the crowd that has, no memory of the NWSL prior to like 2016, 2018, maybe. I mean, 2019. Like, I mean, we're talking about two-time NWSL Coach of the Year and two-time champion of the league
Yes.
over Laura Harvey twice. And who is Laura Harvey is that crowd's like favorite coach at times. So uh, what I'm saying here is like the Vlaco, I would not be surprised if the Vlaco, you know, if they lose this, if the Vlaco haters come out. Um, but I think it's been pretty well proven that he's a darn good club coach versus a uh, versus being just a guy who can't close the deal because he's already got two rings on his finger.
Yeah, more than most, let's say.
Mhm.
Yeah, I always felt he was better than Laura Harvey. Just he finished and got championships, and she got a couple of Coach of the Year awards. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that it would be fair if they did have that criticism, but fans are not always fair, which is why I asked the question.
Correct.
We've seen that in a lot of different situations. Uh, so I'm actually surprised I asked you the question about prediction. I'm surprised you didn't just throw it right back at me.
Well, you quickly segged so you didn't have to give a position a prediction. So now I am going to take the opportunity to ask you to give me some sort of prediction, Ted.
I will. I half jokingly do these because I don't really believe in predictions but I kind of will jokingly say 2-1. The Current will score all three goals.
An own goal.
But
Is this a Peter Vermees quote?
no, I've
Oh,
joked about that stuff long before Vermees ever said it that the other day.
oh my
Uh,
gosh. Anyways, we, we
that's
we won't go down that rabbit hole on this podcast. We don't need to.
No, no, no. Yeah, we will be Vermees free from this point on the podcast on this podcast. We can do it on other ones, but I feel like they will be a little bit tight, just like in that first game where they they scored a lot, but they also were a little bit tight and they gave up some. So I just fear that there might be something that happens in there. But the one thing is that I feel good about this team is that even if they gave up the first goal, be it a legit one or an own goal, or however it happens, is they're not going to go, oh crap, we're not good,
Yeah.
and pull back and then struggle. I think they will just double down and come back out, and you'll see Cooper put in a couple, or Vanessa or Dabinia. So,
Or Tema.
oh wait, Timwa, Timwa, Timwa.
Add that to the list.
Yeah, I will actually go with the assumption that she may not start just because she has been listed as having an injury. Because but I would not be shocked if she starts either. So, all right, man. You're away. You're in a hotel, and I don't want to keep you too long. So, any last words? Any thoughts? Anything we needed to discuss?
No, just enjoy the occasion that Saturday will be. Home playoff games, especially in this league with how it's set up, don't always come around, and they are to be taken with all eyes, ears, and hearts waiting to be filled by moments in the games, good and bad. And they're that's what you want as a fan to be a part of, right? You want to be in those postseason matches. You want to be there. You want to be in that atmosphere. So if you go, embrace it, enjoy all the feels of it, the heart, the roller coaster, the nerves, the euphoria, the upset, sadness, and enjoy what the occasion of a home playoff game is.
I would agree with that, and just enjoy that you have a team that's this good at this position, and even if they did happen to lose this game in unexpectedly, it has been a really good season. So,
Yeah.
and extremely entertaining. All right, man. I appreciate the time, and we are out.